It's really devastating when something like this happens. At this point, my hopes are pretty low. Welcome to the faithful farmstead. I come from a long line of gardeners and farmers, and it runs deep in my blood. But I've learned a lot along the way, and I want to show you what I'm learning right now. In October, we planted nearly 200 garlic cloves, and I'm sad to say we may only be harvesting a handful of those plants in June and July. Let me tell you why. With every failure in the garden, you have to view it as a learning experience. And when you view it that way, the failure doesn't feel, doesn't hurt as bad, even though it's really sad. And I'm really, really sad about my garlic. And let me show you what's going on over here in these beds. So this bed and this bed, we planted in October. We put cloves in the ground, filled it with topsoil, some compost, like we have done the past couple years. We've gotten great garlic harvests in the past, but this year I'm learning something new, and while it's devastating, it's also giving me a little bit of an education and continuing my knowledge of gardening. These beds were completely lush with garlic. When we planted them, they started popping up pretty quickly, and within the first month we just had like tons of garlic sprouts between these two beds. But then I noticed once it started to get warmer, they were starting to look like they weren't really coming back to life. They go dormant in the winter time and kind of stop growth, but then usually in the spring they start growing again. And I noticed they kind of just stopped. They looked kind of mushy, and when I would go to pull, like it would just come out of the ground like that. And that should not happen. So when if you were to pull up one of your garlic, there should be a ton of tiny little roots on here. So I was really confused by that and began some research, and let me open this up and show you what I found. All right, so this is actually another one that I pulled, because the one I had pulled, I was having a hard time finding a good image of it. So hopefully this will focus, but you can kind of see, let me see. There we go. On the side there, do you see those little squiggly things moving around? Yeah, like right there's one, there's this one, the little white little things. They're almost translucent. Well, they are tiny little worms. See that right there? Those are onion maggots. The first one that I pulled up and I saw the little worms on them, I was completely grossed out because, I don't know, worms are disgusting. Those kind of worms. And I just did like a Google search, worms on my onions, and found out that there is a thing called onion maggots, and they affect anything in the allium. I have a hard time saying that. Allium family, which would be onions, garlic, leeks. They can affect some cabbages from what I read. And they basically are a fly that lays its larva in the soil there or close to the area. And when they hatch, they go for the alliums as their food. And they start by eating the roots, and then they kind of work their way up to the stem. And that's kind of why it was hollow in the middle. This can also happen with full-grown onions in the ground. And I'm a little nervous because I do have onions planted in this bed as well. So far they look fine, and they don't look like they're experiencing any kind of damage. But it's really devastating when something like this happens. And so of course my question was like, well, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to save my bed right now? And it doesn't appear like there is. I did sprinkle some diatomaceous earth on the beds. That was said to have helped probably before this stage. Like when I planted the bed, I probably should have sprinkled it in the soil just to kill off any larvae, like when it would hatch. So now I know for next year when I plant garlic to obviously do that as a preventative. At this point, my hopes are pretty low that we're going to harvest any garlic from there. But I'm going to keep a close eye on my onions, and hopefully my onions will do okay. I did also plant chamomile with my onions, which chamomile is a great companion plant to onions. And I'm wondering if I would have planted it with my garlic, if it would have helped my garlic too. It's beneficial for the plant, for like good pests to be drawn to the area and they can eat the bad pest. So I think that would have maybe helped me out as well. I'll try that next year. But I do have my onions down here. So garlic's back there. It's not doing so hot. Onions are on the ground here and they're looking pretty good. So these are all of my onions, and like you can see there's like nice green tops on them. When I pull at them, they don't like there's roots, like they're rooted in the ground, they're growing. Where my garlic over there, you know, I would just pull on it a little bit and it will come out of the ground. And you can see here the chamomile is coming up along here. I did sprinkle diatomaceous earth on this row just as a cautionary measure for the onions. I could be super upset about this garlic, and while I'm really sad, being upset isn't going to help me. It's not going to change it. But if I view it as a learning experience, it hurts a little less. And now I know some things to do. It doesn't mean I'm a bad gardener. I've heard other people say that. It just didn't work this year, and that's okay. And that is the process of gardening. I would give you all an encouragement of, if you're a new gardener and you're trying something for the first time this year and it doesn't work, don't just be like, I can't do this, I have a black thumb. Just look at it, assess it, learn what you can, ask friends, ask the internet, that's what it's there for. And just tuck it away as knowledge for the next year. And every year you do that, you will learn something new. This is my 8th garden here in Tennessee, and this is the first time I've ever had onion maggots. It's the first time I've even honestly heard of them. So you learn something new every single year. Just take it, put it in your little tool belt, and then you know what to do for the following year. And that also builds your knowledge to pass along. Like, we're not meant to like know it all. And so ask a friend for tips and advice. And there's things that they have learned that you might have not learned, because everyone's soil is different. Every garden weather is going to be different. You're going to plant different things based on your family needs. So everyone is going to have a piece of the puzzle that can all work together if we just view it that way. And it's not a competition. It's not a competition to see who can grow the most food or who can have the best gardens. We're growing food for our families because we love them. So take it as a classroom and just learn from your mistakes, as I am with this garlic. I remember how overwhelming it was to start gardening, and just to know some of those like tried and true things. I had to dig for those because I started gardening before the age of information about gardening was everywhere. And so I had tips from my mom that were passed down from my Amish grandmother, and I had books that I checked out from the library. So I've compiled a garden ebook, a couple tips and tricks to look for when you're first starting. It's even great for the seasoned gardener because there's some old-fashioned tips in there too, maybe you haven't heard of. Go check it out, it's in the link below. Short and sweet video today, but I figured that's something that y'all might want to know if you're growing onions and garlic this year and you happen to, I hope you don't, but if you happen to have some mushy garlic and you pull it up and there's little worms there, they're onion maggots. Gross. We'll see you on the next one.